Welcome to Tambellini Group's Women in Technology Spotlight Series. In these monthly interviews, we showcase the accomplishments, perspectives, and career trajectories of the remarkable women leading technology strategy in higher ed today. I'm lucky to be joined today by Sue Workman, who serves as the VP and CIO at Case Western University, where she has been serving in that role for 7 years. Welcome, Sue.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Why don't we start off with one of my favorite questions to ask anyone I meet, which is, what did you think you wanted to be when you grew up and why?
Well, probably like most women my age, I wanted to be a teacher. Maybe also just because I really enjoyed school, and I thought that was what was being modeled for me. So I thought, oh, I should be a teacher. So first I thought, I'll be an elementary teacher, and then I thought, oh, I'll be a music teacher, and then I thought, oh no, I'm going to be a phys ed teacher, and then in high school and then in college, I decided I was going to be a high school math teacher. So that's what I thought I was going to be, and I never taught a day.
So can you tell us a little bit about from the time where even in college it sounded like you were on that teacher path and how you ended up ascending to the role you're in now?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting journey. So I majored in math and math education. So I had a teaching certificate, and I minored in computer technology at the time. And so when I graduated, I thought I am never going to touch another computer in my life. And and so I did get a teaching job before I graduated, and I was going to make $11,000 a year. And I actually got a contact from a guy that wanted to hire me as a systems administrator, and I was like, I don't know, I already got a job. And so I talked to my dad, and my dad said, I think you should talk to him. And so I got $2,000 more a year by being a system administrator. So I went into that job. So I never really taught. And I started there. I was in a private industry. I was working on Hewlett Packard computers. And then Hewlett Packard hired me, and I was a systems engineer in Indianapolis in their sales office for a while. And then the guy that hired me the first time started his own company and said, hey, I want you to come back. And so I then went to my first management job with him and stayed for a little while. And then I decided I wanted a title more than whatever I was at the time, director or whatever. And that title was mom. And so I adopted a baby and decided that the best place for her was not where I was at, and that I couldn't travel like I was supposed to be traveling and everything like that. So I saw a job at Indiana University, and I took a big pay cut, and I moved there. I was there for 23 and a half years, rose up through various roles, and at the last 7 of as an associate vice president for client services and support. And then this position came available, and I knew the guy that was the interim. I actually had worked with him at Indiana University. He had retired, and he was just filling in here, and he called me one day. He's like, Workman, don't pass this one up. This has got you written all over it. so I have been here now for almost 7.5 years, and really enjoyed it. So I've taken like no real plan. It's just opportunities that happen. And I think it's really important that people know. I mean, so many of my opportunities are from people that I've known already. So building those relationships is really important.
It's very key. It's funny to hear how sometimes things come full circle, like you had mentioned, someone you had worked for before, starting their own company and then coming back to you years later. I think it's so important for everyone to build their networks. You had also said that a close colleague of yours had said that this job had you written all over it, which leads to the next question, which is, was that true? And can you describe to us sort of what you do in your role? What does a week in the life of Sue Workman as CIO look like?
Well, there's really no week in into life. That's the same. It's every 10 minutes is different, I would say. And so, I mean, I have a few standing, meetings or obligations, but it's almost always different. And many days, the end of the day, what was accomplished is different than the plan at the beginning. Sometimes it's a lot more, and sometimes it got totally diverted. And so I think, though, that that's what has really um, interested me in this is like I don't get bored by any means. And, I like to do a lot of things. I like to know a lot of things. I like to do a lot of different things. And this role has that. So in my role, I have responsibility for all of IT at Case Western Reserve. So we centralized IT about almost 6 years ago. It was actually about 6 years ago we started, excuse me. And we, the board wanted me to have responsibility for all of IT instead of it being distributed. So we did a very methodical, I think, thoughtful way to centralize IT, and we made a whole new organization. So it wasn't just people from the schools coming in, it was a whole new organization for all IT. So we all felt like we were a part of a new organization. So I have the typical kind of IT where I have, enterprise applications and infrastructure and support and cybersecurity, and those kinds of things. But I also have research computing. Some CIs do not have research computing. So I have the high performance computing and research support. And then I have teaching and learning technologies. So it has the classrooms, but it also has online learning in it and faculty support. So we've created a couple of new programs, one in engineering and one in our School of Management that went live this fall. So that's been a rather new development to have that responsibility.
It's going from that distributed to centralized model is such a huge undertaking, especially when you're working at a large university with large research capacity, like you mentioned. Within all these different departments that you oversee, I imagine you're interacting with such a host of different individuals. I'm wondering, overall, you mentioned a recent project, but is there any one project or initiative that you're particularly proud of that you've complete? I mean, I know nothing's never complete, but that you're working on now or have especially enjoyed doing, or both?
Well, yeah, I think the coolest thing that I've ever done in my career, and it's not me by any means. It's a team of people across the university. But we built a new health education campus and with Cleveland Clinic, and it houses medicine, nursing, and dental medicine. It's built by the same architect that did the Apple headquarters. It's just really beautiful. But the point is really to have these students learn in an interdisciplinary way at the school before they just get a job and go to a hospital or something. They get to work together. So when we were building this building, we didn't want to build a cadaver lab. It's expensive. It's hard to turn the air over enough times. There's a lot of special things that go into a cadaver lab. So we wanted to teach anatomy with something, a hologram. And so I got to go with the CEO of Cleveland Clinic and the president at the time, Barbara Snyder of Case Western Reserve, to Microsoft, and we saw the HoloLens before. It was just a prototype. It was basically wires on your head. And so it wasn't even released for like at least 2 years after that. And so it was just, I was just blown away by this technology. And so we created a center they had to create the art for the hologram. But basically it's so cool because if you are where you are, I'm here. We could both have our HoloLenses on, be looking at the very same hologram. We could see where each other's looking. We could record it. We could do all kinds of things. And so, it's really, really cool. And it's mixed reality, so you can see what else is around you as well. It's not like virtual reality where you're just all in it. And so when the pandemic hit, we were able to ship out 138 HoloLenses to each student's home so that they could continue to study anatomy. And if they were using a cadaver, they couldn't have done that. And they could study no matter where they were together. And they actually learn as well. They learn 40%, or I'm sorry, 6 times faster, and they retain 40% more 8 months later than they did in the cadaver lab. So it's just been such a fun technology, and it's really just so satisfying to see it put into a great practice like that.
That's amazing to hear, because you got to see it, especially like before it was a prototype, like when it was a prototype rather, to actually having application for it. And with the pandemic hitting, being able to, I guess, scale at that level and use it effectively and see the results for it. It's really an example of something where you've been able to see it come full circle.
Yeah, we were under NDA, and I kept telling people, because, I'd seen some mixed reality, virtual reality stuff before, and I was not thinking I was going to be impressed. But I was. I mean, I came out of the first demo, and I sit down and I just told them, I said, "You changed my life." I didn't think this technology would happen in my lifetime, let alone in my working lifetime. And it was okay we were under NDA, because I had no words to describe to people what I had seen. And so, it was a really great experience. And it's just fun. It's just different, and very satisfying.
It's also a great segue into the next question that I have for you, which relates to the future of higher ed. And you've definitely been on the cusp of seeing what that was going to look like before others. But even with that in mind, if a magical genie could come down and grant you one wish to tell you about where the future of higher education, technology, strategy is headed, what would you want to know?
That's a really good question, because there's a lot I want to know. But I think I really would like to know, where are we really headed? Are we really heading, back to the classroom? Are we really headed hybrid or remote? Are we really headed into something like I just described, where, it's a mixed reality, where it's not just looking at, a 2D screen, it's really life. You can experience these things. And so how, what's the future? And I think it'd be really interesting for K-12 as well, because what do we ask every kid to be able to do to really be successful in school? They have to be able to read. And reading, for some people, it just takes longer to learn how to read than others. And so, I had one kid that could read when he was 4, and I had one that struggled in 3rd grade. But if we could give them the experience, instead of saying, read about this, then spit it back out on the test or whatever, let's take you to a museum. Let's, in with your headset, or let's look at, this historical thing, or art, or whatever. Let's look at how forces work in the world, as far as like physical forces and those kinds of things. I think there's so much potential there for K-12, that I just would like to know, in 10 years, are we still sitting in classrooms, or are we, being a little bit more thoughtful about how to really teach and learn in the environments that we're in.
Yeah, you make such an interesting point there, because I think of the fact that no matter how much the technology changes or augments the traditional experience, the fundamental skills that we all need in terms of literacy, analytical skills, communication, synthesizing information have not really changed that much. They're
Right.
all things that we always need, but the opportunities that technology presents to teach those in a new way or using different modes, it will be interesting to see how much those can adapt and change for others. So in closing, I wanted to ask you, as someone who has had such a long career in this field and has done so many different things in both the private and public sector, you had mentioned getting advice twice from people who had given you not only the idea of take that systems role and also take this job at Case Western. But is there one piece of advice generally on how to manage a career, especially as a woman in a field that hasn't traditionally had gender equity in technology, that you would like to share with others that has helped you in your career path?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I love what I do, and I think that I love what I do because I typically love the people that I'm doing it with, and so I'm in technology, but I'm in technology because of the relationships and the people that are in technology. And I think that the advice that I've received from several people in one form or another is the answer's in the room. You can you don't have to think of it all by yourself. If you involve people and all kinds of different people about whatever issue you're trying to resolve, a lot of times, first of all, they'll buy into the issue earlier and not you don't have to sell it to them later, but a lot of times you'll get a better answer than if you just do it yourself. And so I used to think, oh, it's just faster if I just do it, and sometimes that's true, but most of the time it's better if I involve other people. And so I think delegating and including people in all kinds of things to just make it better, have teamwork there, is probably the best advice that I've ever had.
It's so important to remember, especially now where so many of us are working remotely, and it can be a little higher of a bar to cross to reach out to someone to say, what do you think about this? Do you have any ideas?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious. I mean, you ask about the genie. I'm really curious about the future of work, and if how we really do this. I don't want to become a transaction. I don't want to become, you do work, you get paid. I mean, that's kind of how it is. But for me, it's always been I do some interesting things. Oh, there's a paycheck at the end of the month that I pay my bills with, but I don't go in just to, or I don't just do work just to get paid. And so I really hope that we can get through those bars and continue to have the relationships together in order to really continue to have enjoyment and work with the people that we really do care about and really do want to succeed with.
Well, I think that you're sharing your thoughts today and everything are a great way of collaborating and sharing those ideas. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Happy to do it.